Jack Harlow has gotten blacker.
I got blacker.
And whiter at the same time. I'm Sean, Lonegevity with Bringing Down the Band and the New Old Heads podcast, and this is my Unpacked series where I typically go deeper on New Old Heads segments, things that we talked about on the show. The Jack Harlow thing is kind of big. I like talking about white people in black spaces from the white perspective. I like to talk to my white contemporaries, if you will.
White contemporaries.
But yeah, let's go ahead and just jump into the video. This actually came out just today. And also, before we get started, you might see some timing issues where I interject where the background looks a little bit different, and it's because I had to re-record some things because I didn't have the gate set appropriately and some of my phrasing got cut off. So I had to like redo stuff. So that's what that is. And this is called Why Jack Harlow's Monica Missed.
Next transition from the charismatic first-class rapper to a full-blown R&B crooner has definitely sparked a massive debate across our timelines. Now, his latest
Wouldn't say that he's crooning out here.
creative pivot shows an artist willing to take massive risks. It also highlights the delicate line between appreciation and appropriation. So let's watch this video from the homie Read My Soul, and then we will discuss.
I'm saying you didn't retreat into a whiter genre. In fact, you arguably went deeper into
I got blacker.
black music.
We're not going to talk about the I got blacker thing because I get what he was trying to say. He should have said I went into more black roots.
And I feel like that is a major point of contention in people that are arguing this. Even me, when I first watched this, it was like, I can very easily see that he was jesting and he was joking, and it was a very sarcastic statement. Me, as somebody who is also somebody who's very sarcastic, I understand sometimes how that can get you into trouble. I initially was just like, well, can we focus on some of the other things that he said and the music specifically that seemed to me to be a little bit more problematic?
Right? Like, he shouldn't have said, I got blacker, right? I don't know if this is a popular move, but it just doesn't feel like a genuine, like, ooh, I like this, right? It just all felt wrong. The rollout, even the joking of like, I like black girls, or like, I couldn't see you without a black woman. Like, the whole everything to this was very just like, I'm not feeling it. But yeah, this is about everything I expected from the kid.
So I think early in my career, I was split.
This is what I expected also from a music standpoint. Like, I didn't expect a lot coming into this. I was like, okay, Jack is not a singer.
Want to be an entertainer or an artist? Do I want to be a celebrity or an artist? I have now chosen artist.
First thing was like Kentucky Fried Chicken.
It is no secret down here that blacks and chickens are quite fond of one another.
Jack is from Kentucky. That kind of aligns, that kind of tracks. I would also say that it's a very, and I probably touched on this a little bit later, but the piece about Jack mentioning, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be an entertainer or an artist from the jump is very interesting to me because like, without knowing a lot about Jack Harlow, I would have just assumed that he came into this space as an artist. And that right there is a very interesting and very specific and important piece to the context of everything else, especially when you compare him as who he is to other artists like him in this space and how they pivot and move throughout things. People that come into this space strictly as from an artistic standpoint, they move differently than entertainers do. Entertainers are looking for looks. They're looking for popularity. They're looking to come in and get the money. Look at that. That's a very distinct difference from the jump. Just in that very subtle context clue between somebody like a Mac Miller and somebody like, a Post Malone.
Everything about what he is going to be within our culture just didn't make sense. So we're just waiting for the switch.
So, Lone, when we came in, I know you wanted to...
Were those real pictures of him?
With the chicken?
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess.
I mean, it makes sense because
I wouldn't doubt that he would be popular enough to get them looks. So
Louisville Young Brands.
Yeah, I can see it.
I can
He's
see
from
that.
Kentucky.
Yeah, he's from Kentucky, yeah. But Lone, you had mentioned...
It's actually kind of on brand for him. You know what I mean?
Let's go the music route, just as it relates to the actual music and, what you guys pulled from it, from what you heard. Let's start there. There any initial thoughts? Jay, I'll come to you first. What did you think initially?
I mean, other than the very last song, I have no use for any of this.
Well,
I mean, I think that it's, I literally think that it would be better as an instrumental project. His singing on it, or whatever you want to call this, vocalizing, it's not good. It's not good. I don't know who he would consider his inspirations on this particular project, but he's not doing them proud of. I wanted to actually, okay, I'm going to go in and just listen to this, and maybe it would make other things make sense, but it doesn't. you know, this is something like I'm never going to listen to again unless they tell me they put out an instrumental. Then maybe I could do something with it. I could set it as a vibe, but you know, every time his voice comes on, it basically ruins the experience. And I know that's super harsh, but it's just how I felt on this particular record. And the thing is, I've liked Jack Harlow's music. You know, he's got some things that even the things that weren't super popular, you know, those were the things I wound up kind of liking.
Jack Harlow has always been on the fence to me. He's always been one of those artists that's where like I've never disliked him and I've never liked him. Like I couldn't tell you a Jack Harlow record that I liked, but I had a lot of people even before he was like on tell me like, yeah, you should check out Jack Harlow. He's pretty good. You should check out Jack Harlow. You know, I listened to a couple songs. I'm like, all right, he can rap well. You know what I mean? But all of the stuff that he's done, you know, since he become a little bit more mainstream, like I don't really like any of that stuff. Like he did that record with 𝗕𝗥𝗡𝗚, did the First Class record I thought was kind of corny. You know, it fit for what it is, you know, like for the space that it lived in, but he hasn't really made anything that was like super impressive, but I always kind of held a little bit of space for him to be like, he probably could go either this way or that way, you know, as far as like his skill set, and he could make really good music if he wanted to.
This is just so unpleasant to listen to once his vocals hit the tracks that I was like, I mean, it was basically just a 9-pack of ass.
I don't think it was, his vocals were that bad. Like he was at least singing in key. There are people out here that are literally not singing in key. They need auto-tune for everything. Like there are elements of what he's doing to where like I can at least appreciate what he's doing. I just think it's very monotonous.
I did not.
Dang.
I'm never going back to this.
A 9-pack of ass is crazy.
You know, and it's not a long listen, so it's not like I might have got lost somewhere in the mix of what he was trying to do. Like I said, there's only 9 songs on the album, and none of them are particularly long.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is for someone who has enjoyed his music previously. You know, I mean, but I'm not a huge fan. I'm not like, oh yeah, but like this is disappointing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it like even and there have been albums that.
Like he hasn't impressed me enough for me to be like fully disappointed. I think that's also where I
tried to move into the same thing that I may not have been a huge fan of, but I was like, okay, I can see where the structure. Like I think what was Mac Miller's Divine Feminine?
Yeah, Divine Feminine was, I think, the one. that was the one, right?
Yeah.
That he kind of first made that push, but then obviously
Larry Fisherman.
Yeah, well, from Larry Fisherman, really. I mean, that was his producer moniker, but that Circles and there was the other Swimming. Yeah.
Which were both executed very well.
You know, and so like I can think about like those records where someone who I know as a rapper tries to do something a little bit more experimental vocally and stylistically, but I just couldn't get into this. Like, and it's not one of those situations like, oh, you got to listen to it again. No, like I said, it's not a long project. I got through it, listened to the whole thing, and I had those moments where I was like, really? Is this what we're doing? Like, and so that's why I'm disappointed in the quality of the project. Other than I can't say it's a 9-pack of ass because I kind of like song 9, but I had to listen to
That's my favorite record.
I had to get through the whole project.
Yeah,
you know, sitting there, you know, just on my computer, and I'm like, what are we doing here?
I think
that's one of the 2 records that Robert Glasper was on too.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. But I think it had. I'm gonna give it more moments than that. I don't think it's
vocally.
No, not vocally.
Okay.
But I'm gonna give it more. This is where we always have the conversation about. We talk about the era that we're in, and what do we always say? It's a vibe. People, we've had that conversation before when people say it's a vibe. It's a vibe. I'm going to categorize this as a vibe that had some moments. I'm not looking at this to be an elite R&B project because I'm not looking for it. I wasn't even looking for that. I didn't even think that before I hit play. Right?
This ain't going to be Masego.
This is not about to be that. So I already knew that. So I had to lower my expectations first and foremost. But I think it has some. I think there were moments. Do I think this is an elite project? Do I think it's groundbreaking? The only thing groundbreaking about this is his comments. If we just keep it in a buck, to me. Now, I could be wrong. It could grow on me later, but I don't see it. It had moments for me, but I ain't gonna do 9-pack of ass.
I agree with you. I feel the same way. It didn't sound bad to me.
Right.
But I've heard this same thing and I've heard it done better.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that was the only thing that's my only takeaway from it. Is there a couple songs that I might play from time to time when I got something soft laying next to me?
There you go.
Yeah. But besides that, probably not.
Yeah.
Right.
What you think, Long?
Jay took the words out of my mouth when he said it could have been an instrument. I threaded that, whatever you call that, earlier today. I was like, the instrumentation, I feel
the musicality of it is not bad.
Strictly production, right?
I feel very similar about this project.
And I will also say, because I'm about to go into it a little bit deeper, but I don't think I mentioned this. Like from a musical standpoint, I think it sounds really good. I like everything that's happening in there. I even like how the vocals are kind of, they did the background vocals on things. It's just like from a musical and just like a production, like from the production element, like the overall production of it. It's not, you know, you take away the vocals, it's like really good, you know, but I'm also a fan of instrumental music.
Jack Harlow, as I did with J. Cole's last album. And my sentiments are very similar. I feel like Jack Harlow is technically doing things within his wheelhouse. He's not going outside of his range as a vocalist. He's staying within that,
which is a skill in itself.
The songs, if you listen to them, yeah, you know, he's doing this and then he's doing this and he's doing this. But to me, from a vocal from the vocal performance perspective, I don't need any of it, and it just wasn't very impressive. But I can see it being decent background music, you know. And so, you know, from a music standpoint, it was straight. But I'm not gonna go back and listen to any of this again. Say Hello, the last record, was probably my favorite. You know, there's a couple other ones that I don't hate, but it also sounds very similar. Like it doesn't, there's not a lot that's varying from this vibe. And maybe that was the intent. Maybe it was very much intentional to stay right within this same space this entire time throughout it.
Because I was going to say, like, is that more of a, it's a cohesive thing? I want to keep it cohesive, which can work sometimes, but sometimes it can't, obviously.
Yeah. And as somebody who's made records that are very similar in nature, I have one specific project I did called Love Redefined. And I had to approach that very specific because like I was in very much of a very specific headspace. Wanted people to tell a story and be cohesive, but at the same time, I didn't want it to be 12 different versions of the same song. And when I listened to this Jack Harlow project twice, it just felt like different versions of the same thing. Just like there was nothing about it that was like personal. That felt personal from it. So I don't know.
From my first skim and then me listening a little bit more the second time, it sounds like the same song over and over again, just like very subtle. Like there's no depth there. There's no depth. At least I didn't feel like any depth to the writing.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of things happening with the vocals. You know, there's like there is one song, and I forget which one it was, where he did something that was kind of cool. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, but he never did it again. You know, and to Jay's point, and I really hate to make the comparison between the two white rappers that are doing this, because there's more than just white rappers that do this. But when you listen to Mac's stuff when he was doing it, it was just raw. There was soul in it. It felt like him. And when I listen to this, it just sounds very produced. It sounds very much just like mass produced. It kind of sounds like a bunch of AI music.
That's also like the AI music comment, like we kind of moved on from it really fast, but I actually feel pretty strongly about this. This is just Jack Harlow feels like prompted music. It feels like, from a technical standpoint, everything sounds good. Like nothing sounds super out of place or anything like that. People are singing in the right key. You know, like the voice isn't straining. The music is very good, but it just feels very, very kind of bland, you know? I don't know. I need a little bit more.
Appreciated Mac's pivot, even though.
Also from the Mac Miller perspective, again, I know we've made this here, and I've seen a lot of people compare Mac to Jack in the last week or however long since this came out, but like there is no comparison to Mac Miller and Jack Harlow. Mac originates from an artist. You could say that he did frat boy rap, but he really didn't do frat boy rap. He was always paying homage. He was always rapping really well. You know, you could say Asher Roth was doing frat boy rap. He literally was. And then he kind of made a pivot as well into the stuff he was doing, not necessarily in a way that was like soul or rap or sing a different genre. He evolved his sound within hip hop, and Asher's still making music. Doesn't get talked about enough, I think, sometimes, but Mac pivoted, but everything that it was a part of who Mac was, you know, like the musicianship portion of it, you know, like he could play instruments, you know what I mean? Like, you know, his vocals didn't sound perfect. They sounded like somebody singing. He sounded like an artist, you know, he didn't sound like somebody who is placed in a place to sell records. That's kind of why I hate the comparison between the two, simply because they are white. I get a little defensive, a little bit sensitive around, admittedly, I get pretty sensitive sometimes. That's sometimes when you see me do some of my more quote unquote wild takes, is I get sensitive around when people cloud integrity around art and white people sometimes. And this is one of those moments where like I hate the comparison to Mac to Jack because there is no comparison there.
I like Mac when he raps.
Yeah.
But I could appreciate when he did the other stuff too. You know what I mean? And he did it so tastefully.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like as you can kind of tell, like I don't even like Circles, Divine Feminine. I struggle with that word, and the other one. Why did I forget it again? We just mentioned it. But those 3 records are albums that I listened to 1 or 2 times. I thought were good, but I never went back to them because I was a fan of Mac for his clever, subtle wittiness with his raps, you know, and how he did stuff that way. I agree that Mac got way more in depth when he merged into these other albums, but me as just a fan of him, specifically for me to him, like I was just a fan of Goofy Mac. Like I liked him. I liked his clever bars. I liked the way that his personality was on everything. And that's what I'm kind of a fan of from him. But I can appreciate his pivot into what he did because it felt natural. You know what I mean? It wasn't like he was just trying to be somebody else. That was just an artist leaning more into their artistry. And there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes I feel like the conversation around appropriation and white people that join into hip hop or black genres or historically black genres that are dominated by black artists, you know, because you could say that rock music really kind of swung. White people kind of grabbed that, and country music at the same, even though we know the roots of it, right? But sometimes that conversation around becomes like, oh, well, I'm white and I want to do different things. How dare you say that I can't do other art? Well, that's not what the conversation really is. The conversation is around you don't disrespect, you don't come into a genre and disrespect it and then leave after you get what you want from it, maybe more times than not, you don't get what you want from it, and then you go back to something that's a little bit more comfortable. You know, Mac just naturally evolved, and depending on where Jack Harlow goes from this point, it could potentially be the same thing as well. We have to give artists the space to be artists, no matter the color or creed that they're from. But how different people navigate in different spaces does matter, especially if you are an outsider. When it comes down to it, if you're white, you are an outsider to some degree from the music and the culture. It doesn't mean that you can't be a part of it, but it's just like anything else. It's like working at a job. If you go get a job somewhere and there's already a culture established at this job, and you come in and you have a completely different culture that you're trying to embark and push upon it, and it doesn't match, and you're trying to change things, well, the people that have been existed and have created this culture for such a long time, they're going to look at you funny, like, why are you coming in and trying to change something that is barely even, it's like, it's not yours. There's still more work that you have to do.
I don't know. It comes down to it. It's just, you know, good for him if he continues down this path, and maybe he gets
better.
No, seriously. Maybe he's taking singing lessons, you know, vocal lessons. Maybe he's going to get better as this grows. This isn't, all things considered, this is not absolutely horrible.
I agree.
It's just, especially from a music standpoint, I think the music is great. I think he's doing what he needs to do. He's like Trent Dilfer on the Baltimore Ravens right there.
Yeah.
He's making
like
those
that.
short passes, and he's doing just enough to get to the finish line. And
The defense, which will be the music, is carrying.
everything else is carrying him.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and so
well, let me ask you this.
Sorry, that was kind of a bar right there.
Because this may or may not be authentic to him, but the issue is we don't know, because we don't know who this man is for real.
And that's a bar.
That's
You know what I
fair.
mean?
That's fair.
Like we knew who Mac was somewhat because he put it in his music for the most part, and I don't know if that's really a thing from Jack. Like I get a lot of party and bullshit records from him. There's not really anything in depth where he's told me who he actually is.
being
in
an
his
artist,
records.
per se. Yeah.
I
What
mean,
you talked about?
what
in
he
the
said. What
clip.
he said. He's like, I didn't know if I wanted to be an entertainer or an artist, and well, I'm choosing this. So maybe this is still in his future, and I'll give him that benefit. Like, from a music standpoint, this isn't the worst thing I've ever heard. This isn't the worst try. You know what I mean? And people are allowed to try, and I'm allowed to not like it. And, you know, it's cool. I'll be curious to see where he's going to. He did good enough on this to where, like, if he drops something again, I will at least listen to it to see if there's some progression there.
That's
You
fair.
know,
That's fair.
because I think from a music standpoint, he kind of did it tastefully. I think he's following the dots very well.
Yeah,
But I'm very curious if he's going to venture away from those dots and create something that's actually his, even to the point to where, like, he's always felt like a Drake-esque type of artist to me. This feels like what Drake was very good at, which is copy and paste.
I think with that too, like not knowing who he is, this was a great opportunity for him switching genres. If this is a real thing, right? I'm gonna look at you like, oh, this is really like a lane you're gonna step into. Like you're gonna stop rapping because you're not interested as much anymore. Okay, you really like this version of this type of black music over here, and you really kind of want to get your feet wet and you want to try that. It's like, okay, well, give me more of who you are. And I just didn't get that from this project.
I didn't feel anything new about him at all.
I didn't feel anything from it.
Facts.
You know,
Facts.
like I can tell when people are like going through something and they're sharing part of their life. This didn't feel like that to me
At all.
You know, so to me, it's just that's the piece that's missing. It's the soul element. It's the soul and the neo soul, if you will. It's like, you know, so I think the criticisms are you know valid.
Yeah. Yeah.
For my musical expertise take.
Let's go ahead and let's pivot to the antics.
Do you have a name of a list of the names?
I do. I'm gonna pull that up. I appreciate you reminding me, brother, because now we need to talk about his comment that we saw in the opening clip where he said, and the guy set him up perfect too. So you're getting closer to black culture and all. He's like, yeah, I got blacker.
Well, the thing is, and I'll say really quick.
Yeah, come on.
That was that they set him up.
Yeah, it was a setup. Like in the back.
Granted, you know, they set him up and Jack just leaned into it, you know, but
he was doing everything he could to not say that.
Facts.
To lead Jack to say it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know, like
it was definitely a setup.
Anyways,
I think he was just trying to be funny.
I think it was a jest.
Yeah,
I'm with Lone on that. I'm
he
with
was
Lone
just
on
joking. When I watched it, I was like, all right. Sometimes it's interesting to see what will cause outrage on the internet, and I was just like, this is it. I don't know.
But is there a
especially I say that from the perspective of somebody who's very hyper aware of everything that's going on right now. You know, like there are really real things that are happening in my life and my family members that are consequential, you know, based upon what the government is doing and has been doing. And there's so much going on right now to where like I wake up every day and I'm just like, all right, cool. So this is going on. All right, are we making any progress here? No, we're going backwards, you know? And so when I hear Jack Harlow make a joke that's in a sarcastic manner about being black, and I understand immediately that it's a sarcastic phrase, when I see people take it to 120,000%, I'm like, man, why is this the thing? You know? So that's where I'm coming from.
But let's get back to the I got blacker comment. What I was going to ask you, Lone, is I feel like he just set it off GP and didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, but I don't know, man. Like that really didn't land well, bro. That didn't land well.
It didn't land well. It didn't land well because it was clipped.
Because it was clipped. Okay,
all context was lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like, and we said this on the call last night. I don't feel like, I think depending on how it's presented, I don't feel like this is a big deal to most people.
And let me expand on that because I do agree with that, but I also feel like this was a very easy win in a series of events that have been happening very recently, and a lot of L's we have been taking as a nation. This was a very easy win, and I don't know.
I think the fact that it went viral, the fact that what came out was also like how he was dressing. Also, the clip came out, you know, about the black girlfriends thing came out, you know, like, and then the music came out. I feel like it's a combination of all these things at the same time.
I think another thing with the way that I didn't really think about at first, right? And this could just be like a cultural blind spot that maybe I just had in general, you know, but it was, you know, it's around how weird it was that Jack Harlow was dressed the way that he was. And, you know, as I was like sitting and trying to, over the weekend and even to when we shot the show and even after the show, even until today when I recorded this, you know, I had to do a lot more thinking about like, why are so many people, so many black people so upset? And it kind of resonated with me that in a way, Jack Harlow putting on this costume and cosplaying as he is, it kind of feels in a way like a different form of blackface almost. And if you look at it from that perspective, you know, like my perspective is like, it's just the white guy jesting, you know? And I feel like this is a multifaceted, intersectional conversation here, right? So if you have from one perspective, it's like, all right, maybe the statement in itself is just whatever, right? You're joking, you're sarcastic, but when you come out and you're wearing this hat and you have the aesthetics and all this other stuff like this, you're really kind of playing in people's faces a little bit with everything. And this is now that I think about it, this was originally my reaction when I saw him initially walking all slow. Like it looked like he was doing an SNL skit, you know, from the very first thing. And he's kind of playing with it. Like he's not taking it serious. Like Jack Harlow very much can do this album without dressing up and cosplaying, you know? And I guess I can see now that maybe from that perspective, how some people can really be angry at the fact that essentially Jack Harlow is doing a different version of blackface. I'm a white person, right? So I'm saying this, but like,
what?
But from
You don't say.
But from the perspective of somebody asking you, you are not leaning into your white contemporary space
White contemporaries.
to go or to revert back to as what would be what we have seen from people like Post Malone, Miley Cyrus,
Yep.
you know, things of that nature. He's like, you're kind of going the other way. And so the dumb response is just, yeah, I'm not going whiter, I'm going blacker. That's all it is. And so like, even to this day, like if people want to be upset at that, that is perfectly fine. If black people want to be upset at that, that's fine. Me as a white person, I could have said that. I could have said that around you and not thought a damn thing about it.
Well, I mean,
Because I know the intent and I know what I'm saying. You know what I mean? But at the same time,
I guess I think with me and you, or us, I should say though.
It's also a jest.
But
It's
I
also
know
a
you.
jest.
But I know you though. So if you said that to me, I'd be like, I'd laugh and then we'd keep it moving.
yeah, because I'm joking.
Right. But I know that. Though,
You know, like,
'cause
oh,
I know
yeah,
you.
I'm getting blacker. Well, obviously, I can't get blacker. You know, like,
But stylistically, perhaps.
but maybe
this is-
that goes to Byron's point too, is that we don't really know who this guy is.
Yeah.
And I think that proximity piece is very important, right? Me sitting around this table and having this conversation with guys that I've known for a very long time, they know who I am. They know where I come from. They know what I speak about even when I'm not on camera. They know the things that I do, the things that I represent, all of those things. So when they hear me say, no, I didn't get whiter, I went blacker, you know, they would immediately know that, number one, that it was a joke, and number two, that I am being sarcastic, and that's involved in part of it. And I have said stuff that's probably far more crazier on this show when I had said something along I made an entire joke one time about the fact that hip hop is actually white culture, because white people were the one that instituted the oppression that hip hop was born out of. I was being stupid. Like I was joking, I was jesting, I was joking with my friends in that particular type of space. But I am in a public space, and sometimes interesting nature of privilege sometimes is understanding how that interacts and, intersects with a whole bunch of different things. And so, from one perspective, yeah, I don't really apologize for that. But from another perspective, I understand how some people could potentially be offended by it or even feel like it's out of bad taste and things of that nature. And I think that that's okay. I also look at things oftentimes, and maybe this is, maybe I shouldn't, but sometimes I look at things from the perspective of, this is inconsequential. But I feel like also a lot of this comes out because a lot of people, and I include myself within this, but I would probably say most likely black people specifically, have been looking at Jack Harlow with the side eye for quite a while, kind of waiting for him to potentially go down this same path of a Post Malone, as a Kid Rock, as a Jelly Roll, as a Miley Cyrus. It's easier to step away after a while after you have profited off of something. So I think when you are white in this space, you understand. I think Jack actually probably understands this. You are looked at with a particular microscope. And I feel like maybe he thought that, I feel like a lot of this felt like a joke to him. Like, I don't know if he felt like he had cool points because there was a black person that initiated a conversation in a diner about, I can only see you with black women, things. And he was like, oh yeah, really? Like, it's interesting navigating being white and being young too, I think, is another piece to this. Cause I'm way more learned now than I was 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 20 years ago. Right. And so like an understanding the way different things move within the world, I was way more ignorant when I was younger, but then I grew up, and Jack is kind of younger. So I don't know. It's a little bit more context there. Take with it, however you want.
Yeah. Jump in, B. What you think about the black, address the blacker comment first, and then go from there.
I think he just had a few strikes up against him, man. You know what I mean? Like, the comment about him with black women.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean, the shit with the song "Whips and Chains"
Which I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
that got it was a cool song for
I know
a minute.
that song went when we was in the club.
Yeah, it went for a minute, and then somebody.
And for context, for those that don't know, Byron, who's talking right now, is a DJ. Jay Moore has hosted hip hop events, managed a club for many years, as a part of the longest standing hip hop weekly night in Indianapolis history. Over 20 years of hosting a regular hip hop night with DJ Metronome. So they are very much in that particular space to speak on this from that angle.
Somebody had some fake outrage about them. You know what I mean? And the song killed that song. So he had just a few strikes, and then you come out and say something like this, and your project is it comes far left from what people are used to hearing from you. So it just sounds like more appropriation. You know what I mean? So
You got a Donnell Jones hat on.
yeah, it gives them more of a strike, man.
Yeah, I think it kind of snowballed on
turtleneck zip up with the zip on the side.
all that, and then the snowballing with the girlfriend and stuff that you mentioned, and the attempt for the rollout. I think it just kind of snowballed on top of, like, the blacker didn't help. That didn't help all the other stuff that had already started.
The blackening.
The blackening.
I don't know. I've
yes.
seen a lot of commentary around, like, man, how, like, this is white colonialism, and like I'm talking, like, taking it to the extreme, and I'm like, bro,
What is that deep of a dive?
I mean,
No,
like,
it's not.
I mean, if you want to take it there, like, you can take. I can always find a way to get
100%.
racism to get there.
100%.
Like,
yeah.
I kind of butchered what I'm saying here.
I understand the path to it, but like,
I'm really talking about white supremacy and how colonialism and white supremacy is kind of ingrained in everything. So, like, there's always a path. Like, if you want to go there, you could posit almost anything into such thing. You can weaponize the commentary. It's very easy to do, and it's very easy to spot as well. This just, to me, did not feel like the particular moment of white colonialism. Well, parts of it did. Parts of it did. The imagery in general, the imagery felt like it a little bit. Some of the acts. Saying that you're very aware of the political stuff and then kind of doing the stuff anyways to kind of profit off of it. Yes, there are certain levels that I would agree with, but the statement itself, which is what most people, not everybody, which is what most people are kind of hyper focusing on, that's the part. If we're going to be very specific about that, that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
seen some pretty crazy, like, wild takes that I'm just like, it just feels like
Rage bait.
It feels like rage bait. It feels like for clicks. It feels like, also I see white people doing it, and I feel like they're trying to posit themselves.
How can I be down?
How can I be cool within this moment with black people?
Trying to
and
get,
be like,
get a pass to the barbecue, huh?
that's just, I don't have to go to the barbecue. It's cool.
We'd invite you, though.
Yeah.
All right, but
Come
like,
get a plate.
Yeah, you can get a plate. So, Duncan, y'all can get a plate.
I'll go to the house in the back. Yeah.
I do see that a lot more. I've seen quite a bit of this, especially with the Jack Harlow stuff. And, I try not to be super critical of white people that are critical of whiteness and white supremacy, because I feel like it's a net positive, all things considered. But I do see a lot of fucking pandering. The pandering portion feels lame, not the educational piece. So as long as it's like using it as an example and a place to educate, I think is great, But I have a very strong ick when it comes to pandering and things of that nature.
What do you think, Jay? First address getting blacker, and then you can go from there.
Well, the thing is, I think that it's being lost, because even in that clip, there's like a whole nother thing that he said after. He said, I got blacker, where he talks about the political space that we're in right now. And, he kind of addresses, without saying names, the other contemporaries, other white people who are in quote unquote black spaces, and how they have, shifted away from, the sound that initially made them famous. So I think that's part of where I think some people's argument is disingenuous, is because, like, when you hear what he said in a whole, not only was I not upset, I agreed with him, and I think that's where
you agree with him on
when he said, yeah, I got blacker stylistically. Yes, I completely understood what he said, even though I don't like the record.
Oh, okay, okay.
I mean, Neo Soul there's nothing white about Neo Soul
At all.
Neo Soul, quote unquote.
Yeah, shout out to Raphael Sadiq.
I mean,
Who?
Remy Shawn. I mean,
You brought up the one dude.
And there are others, you know, like there are other people that aren't like white, or excuse me, that aren't black. I mentioned Moonshot later. Shouts to them. They're in it. You could say 𝗕𝗥𝗪𝗡𝗚𝗚. You could say there's an artist that I like. He's kind of into some like indie stuff right now, but Jameson was a part of it for a while. You could even say Mayer Hawthorne to some degree. You know, he's making soul music and funk. You know, like there are white people that exist within the space that do it tastefully. But all of these white people understand. You know what I mean?
Take a message.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong.
Take a message from my love.
Yeah, I love that record.
Yeah,
you know,
Good song.
But I'm just saying that like it's so easy for people to have a take based on something that they hear and they initially don't like, and then there's like 3 or 4 sentences that actually put it into some sort of context.
That's fair.
And I think that's where I'm like, hey, everybody, like, calm the down. Like, and I'm not really here to give any white person passes, especially in this space culturally.
Yeah.
Or, you know, to just say, oh, no, he didn't mean it like that. I'm not trying to make any excuses for anybody. But when I hear the totality of what he said, not like I said, I wasn't mad. Not like I said, I agreed with him because like we've seen this before. We've talked about it on this show, how so many people, they enter the public consciousness by doing like, you know, White Iverson, and then all of a sudden he's, you know, Buddy's a country artist, and then and then he feels like the need, he can reach back and say what hip hop is and what it isn't. And it was like, you haven't done enough work in any part of this culture for us to care anything about what you have to say about hip hop.
Facts.
You know, and then there was, you know, because, you know, and same thing with Miley Cyrus. I was talking about Post Malone. I'm not leaving people's names out.
Talk about all of them.
Put the name on that bullet.
Put a name on
it. And then Miley Cyrus talking about, you know, after she was doing songs about Jordans and trying to twerk with no ass.
Thank you.
And then all of a sudden she has this about hip hop is missing and the things. No, you be quiet.
Go sit down.
You've already taken from the culture, if you will, when you were trying to grow up and be edgy, and so you got those Mike Will Made It songs.
Yeah.
You know, and don't get me wrong, like she's got some stuff that once you settle back into being white, you know, that's your lane. You know, buying flowers, and even the song you got with Beyonce on the Cowboy Carter album I think is a great song.
But let's also not forget that she went back to hip hop after she made those comments.
There it is.
So I mean, I think and
Kind of the point, right?
this is where I think, you know, because people just
When
say,
she was falling off,
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly. Before she had the flowers,
Yeah,
and
that's what I was
before she
pointing at.
had the record with Beyonce, she's like, all right, let me dip my toe back over there so I can get some relevance and stay in the game.
If you don't remember, Miley Cyrus had some pretty crazy things to say about hip hop and degenerate and all this stuff and the music and how it treats it. And then she kind of fell off. And then she came back to work with like Mike Will Made It again. It was just like, oh, wow. And this all happened within the time span of us doing the show. We've almost done the show for 10 years this upcoming November. So, you know, it was within the span that we called it, and then it happened in real time. Well, not in real time, but you know what I mean? Real time of the podcast. And this was a perfect example of what we are describing. You posit yourself as, yeah, I love rap music. I love black culture. I love hip hop music, you know? And then you're like, well, actually, it's not serving me anymore. Let me take a hike and go back to this thing that I know that all these people are going to like and I feel a little bit more safe in. It fits me a little bit more, right? See how that's positing. And then you realize that it's not working as well. So then you're like, you know what? Actually, let me double back down. Let me come back around. And actually, you know what? Actually, it's not as bad, you know? Let me go make some more money off of it. That is what you call a culture vulture.
And so, like, when I see what Jack Harlow said, when I see the entire statement, you know, I can tell you that I don't like his record other than it being, hopefully they put out an instrumental version. But when he said stylistically, yes, because the guys were interviewing him tried to dance around it.
They did.
They were like, well, you know, most of your contemporaries go whiter, and you know, you and then
went blacker.
And then yeah, he just said he in a way he took them off the hook.
No, he did.
What about
we all know that.
Justin though?
What about who? Justin?
Mr. Timberlake.
Well, you
What
know,
about
I've said unkind things about that Man in the Woods album.
Okay, yeah.
You know, like when he, you know, the Getting Back to Whiteness record that he put out right after he did his Super Bowl. You know, but I love Future Sex Love Songs, and that's part of the reason I was so disappointed. I was like, and after that, you're going to do this? Yeah. So it is what it is.
I don't know. I mean, also to this too, like as a white person within this space, you have to understand a few things. To Mike's point, you kind of have to understand, like, I feel like there's multiple problems with this. Number one, this conversation happened with two white dudes interviewing another white dude about, you know, a genre switch that is happening. Doesn't it make more sense to have this conversation with somebody that might be a little bit more adept to have this conversation with to start from. And I understand this is just optics, and I'm not somebody who is 100% like, you know, optics are so important.
Yeah.
Like that's not me. But at the same time, like I understand like the spiral of everything that concatenated on top of everything to turn this into what it was. Like,
Yeah, I feel like very much, and I don't know how deep I go into it here, but I feel like if you're going to make if you have the cultural awareness of what you're doing, perhaps going on a show with two white dudes to talk about it and them intentionally clip, like it's in the title. It's like Jack Harlow says he's blacker, you know, like I put a lot of issue here also with the two white dudes who are also profiting off of the outrage that's coming on with this, regardless of how great of journalists and things that they have been in the past. Like titling something in that particular type of way, you know exactly what that's going to do. And if the interviewer is somebody who is legitimately in that space, let's say it was Questlove Supreme, right? That makes perfect sense, right? Let's say he goes and talks about this to Questlove. The conversations are different, you know, and that makes a lot more sense as opposed to kind of what this is. And that's kind of what I was saying here.
So, I mean, the focus was on the music. You know what I mean? It was
that
just,
wasn't.
What?
That conversation wasn't.
Why wasn't it?
That's when we're talking about stylistically.
Yeah, that's still the music. You still talking about the music.
Yeah, but as white dudes sitting around a table talking about a black
That's
genre,
the part. Yeah, that's the part.
you cannot ignore the historical nature of where the music came from, and that and all the things that are like intertwined with it that are automatically going to be applied to it because you are white.
And also because you are making the pivot as you are. Like these are all important pieces. I feel like this is just kind of a failure from his team. Like it may be him, maybe a short sight, you know, maybe they didn't realize, maybe this was a cultural blind spot that they didn't realize that maybe this particular conversation happening now, like right now when this comes out, maybe this is not the place to have right here. Maybe it would be better to have this with better optics if you want this to be viewed better, or maybe this was the point. Maybe it was the point to get more people to talk about it.
Talking about that.
And based off what he's talking about,
I feel okay having these conversations at this table with three black gentlemen because you guys will call me on anything that I say in this particular moment if I'm sidestepping. But if I'm sitting with three other white dudes, there's not that check and balance that happens in that moment because there's a comfortability that sometimes happens when you're just around your own people that you can't really get away from sometimes.
So it's like, how dare you say in a room full of white people say something is stylistically blacker?
Right.
Yeah.
And from and what I mean by that, the comfortability around whiteness is when I am in a black space because it is not native to me, because I am not black, I don't have the possibility to get blacker. You know, that's not a thing, right? But when I'm around my own people, there is a safe, it becomes less heightened sometimes, depending on what the situation is. Now, I don't really have that. And sometimes that's where you can sometimes say, oh, this white person's getting a little bit too comfortable, right? But I know that black people go through this as well. You know, very short story. When I dated a black woman in the past, she had to explain to me about the importance of black spaces. This was over a decade plus ago. And, you know, us being in an interracial relationship, she had to explain that to me. So like, sometimes there's places where I want to go where I don't have to be on guard all the time, where I don't have to feel like I have to perform all the time. And sometimes when I'm around in my, you know, black spaces, that guard gets taken down and I can breathe a little bit. The same thing happens to us as white people to some degree, depending on where we're at. And I know sometimes the side eye can come out. So what does that mean? That mean, oh, what are those white people saying in private? Not necessarily that, but sometimes that cultural awareness that you kind of innately have when you're around people that are different, especially if you come from where I come from, where like racism was something that I had to learn. It was something that I had to unpack. Systemic racism, you know, the white supremacy, understanding all the history of everything. I was taught one thing, I had to unlearn a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of cognitive dissonance there, right? So I always have that innate yearning as well to not want to be sitting on a podcast with 3 other guys, or even sit in front of you right now talking to a bunch of people where I know that there's a bunch of black people that are watching with the checklist out, ready to pick apart the things that I'm saying. It's a lot easier for me to not have this conversation than to have this, right? And so sometimes within that, innately, when you're around white people, you don't have to challenge yourself as much. You can relax a little bit, right? And so that is kind of where I was trying to get around with that. Jack and those guys definitely felt less pressure because of the commonality of the faces that they're looking at. And sometimes that's just baked into the situations of what it is. When I say maybe it makes more sense for them, Jack, to sit down with somebody who is actually historically a part of the space, literally like a Questlove or a Questlove Supreme, who's part of that movement. You know, Jack is probably going to be more on guard, and he's probably, and when I mean on guard, I mean, he's going to be more conscious of the things that he's saying. He's not going to jest as much. You know what I mean? Know what I mean? At least I don't think he would. Again, I don't really know Jack like that. But then again, maybe this is good. Maybe from one perspective, it's good that he sat down here with the white people and he said the things that he said. I don't know. It's definitely a teachable moment, but I still do kind of feel like it has a little bit less credibility, regardless of these gentlemen's respective backgrounds in music. You know, like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I get it.
Because that's the first thing that's going to come.
Who are they to criticize?
Yeah, and who are they to say that
is.
your music is now blacker compared to Post Malone or whatever?
I understand that outrage. Like, I understand that.
But B's talking about them discuss. It's still based around it.
Now, I also do think that they can talk about the music and that perspective from the musical angle. I think that's perfectly valid. But optics.
That's the music,
yeah,
sure. But what I'm saying is that's not the first thing that's going to be taken from that comment.
Just because
the music is going to be later.
Yeah, just because of the picture of it.
Exactly. To what he's talking about. The setup and the dynamics is why that was the focal point. It's
because when it comes down to it as well, like, I know I'm a white person, right? But I've been in the music space for a very, very long time. And even though I don't necessarily make Snail Soul-esque music, I am kind of in that space a little bit. And there are lots of black people, regardless of their cultural backgrounds or where they came from, that can't talk about the music and the musicality in the same way that I can, even though I'm white. And so I don't want to put this out there as like white people can't talk about things. That's not what I'm trying to say. There's lots of white people with a lot of valid, information. And that's why I say a lot of it's optics, but you have to pay attention to the optics.
So how it was set up, the stage, the interviewing, that's why that was. That's why I agree with him. It's like the music was second or third.
Yeah.
It was about the dynamics and what he said.
Which is why when you had this topic in there, I wanted to make sure that we at least talked about the music to some degree.
No, for sure.
To at least do that. Mike, when we had our meeting yesterday, you seemed to be very staunchly on the other side of that.
And you know what I've done since then? I went back, I listened to the project, and I watched everything that he talked about. Because all I saw was the chop up.
The clip.
So I said, let me go back and watch the video, because initially I'm like, this is the corniest comment ever. And I still think from a self-awareness standpoint, you have to be smarter than that. That's just my personal opinion. I still don't think it landed well. I think it was stupid to say.
Unless it was intentional, which is very possible.
After I went back and watched it, I said, I could see how this was chopped up a little bit. And I can see why everybody's just looking at how it was chopped up and just going right for the throat. I saw that, but I had to go back and watch it because I was like everybody else. How dare you say that? It's the first thing I thought about. So I had to go back and watch and actually watch the whole thing. I said, I'm gonna do my due diligence on this. So I want to make sure I'm correct. I still think it's a stupid comment though, at the end of the day. But I got more context. I ain't gonna lie, because yesterday, to your point, I was like, nah, this is stupid, 100%. So speaking, like, I think we've already kind of talked about, I guess, the response somewhat.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anything else that you guys think that would be left as it relates to the response?
Nah, it's kind of OD.
Yeah.
And I get it. You know what I mean? We got to defend our culture.
We have to.
You know what I mean? Because if we don't, nobody will. But, some of y'all can be overboard. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think this was I think this was done in somewhat to honor the music that he likes.
That's what it seems like.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's just,
just wasn't
you're not
executed
Bobby
well.
Caldwell,
Yeah.
bro. That's
Yeah.
it.
That's for damn sure.
Yeah. That's all it is, man. They're like the music, you gave it a shot, and you went and got my guy Robert Glasper. You know what I mean? You went and talked to the right people. It just
didn't come off.
It didn't connect right.
And he might have to circle the block on this style, and I don't know, get
If he's
better
really
to Lone's
passionate
point.
about
If he's
it.
passionate about being an artist,
So
maybe there's another attempt at this down the road. I don't know. Maybe.
So let me. Okay.
Oh man.
Deep dive question. This might be very ignorant. Okay.
Might be.
So he wanted to really be Drake, like he said, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Drake just took that ass whooping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he was like, "Well, let me go get with who beat Drake when he pivoted
Right.
on the Pimp a Butterfly,
Sure.
and see if I could create something similar to that. It still kind of be myself."
Yeah. The interesting thing about Jack Harlow is some of this does feel performative. So I also, even though some of the range of like criticism that he is getting, I don't necessarily think is directly justified. I feel like the people that are very critical of him are looking at him with a side eye, like what Reed kind of said, like, I've seen this song and dance before. Who are you? You know what I mean? And in more times than not, most white artists do tend to just be not about shit, especially when they're in the public eye. So,
And I think I should be very specific when I say artists. Most artists don't necessarily do that. But a lot of people that like to cosplay as artists when they're actually trying to be in the world of entertainment, that's who does that.
point, I feel like it's very feasible that it possibly could be something like that. Do we also think that
I think that's a very interesting point too. The connection to Drake, because Jack Harlow and Drake being very closely aligned with each other. You know what I mean? They seem like the same type of artist. I don't know if I mentioned this in the show or not. Maybe I should just let me talk here.
he named his album 100% because he thinks the name Monica is cool? Just like he thinks the name Adrian is cool. It goes into like the Drakeism of like, why would you call an album Monica if there's nothing deeper behind it? Who is Monica?
Maybe he was inspired by some great Lewinsky, and he decided to name his album Monica.
Then tell me that.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Just say that if that's
You
what
know
it
what I
is.
mean?
Yeah,
Like-
just say that.
I don't know. But I don't even think that's the
That
type
wasn't
of
good.
Monica
I'm
that he's
sorry.
trying to like. But I don't even think that's like when you,
Not at all.
when you name your album Monica and it's a neo soul album. I'm not thinking of a white woman in the White House
At all.
You know,
Yeah, man. There's
I don't know.
there's a lot going on with this release.
He's never said he was in love or nothing. Like that's the name of that's my girl's name, and
I
she
think
was
so.
None of that,
she was
yeah.
the
He
muse.
said from this interview, the pieces that I saw, he said something. He's like, I think he said something like it's just a name that he really likes. And he also talked about how Adrian was a name that he really likes as well for men and also women. And he's like, yeah, Adrian
weird
Brody's
as
like
hell.
not even one of my top 4 names. I'm just like, it just feels very shallow.
or it could just be elusive, and I just don't want you to know my personal life.
It's possible.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, my girl's named Monica, and she know who she is. So
Yeah,
you know,
maybe.
that was my muse when I wrote this project. So that's what I named the album. Now,
It's possible.
Do I?
I don't know about
and you could get. That's why you catching hell, because don't nobody know nothing. You just you throwing shit out there, and people like
You can't like enter a genre known for having like certain levels of depth
And transparency.
Both from like both the linguistic and
Yeah.
vocality and the lyrics and also the music.
Yeah.
And then come at it with like the shallow representation of vocals.
Honestly, I think what I just said right there is why this project failed. It's that. That's the number one piece. That's I think I pretty much kind of covered everything that I really wanted to cover within this. I don't think that I missed anything. When Jack drops his next thing, I will be very curious as to how he approaches that project. I will look at it from that particular lens. I will take the data that I have from this and the stuff that I have before, and as a white person, I will analyze how Jack has moved through this space, as will many other people. And I hope out of everything, that the thing that he said in the interview about, like for a long time, I was trying to decide if I wanted to be an entertainer or an artist, but I chose to be an artist. I hope And it looked like it when I was looking at him say what he said there. He seemed authentic. It seemed more authentic than anything that I heard on the record that I heard. That he really does want to lean heavier into the artistic space. And I think out of everything for him specifically, I hope that's what he does. I hope this doesn't deter him from leaning into what he wants to do more so that more of him comes out. I want his product to be good. I don't want to listen to all this great musical stuff that's happening. And to me, this is just a blip in time for him from a music standpoint. And I hope with all the resources and the seemingly knowledge and understanding that he has, that he takes this a step further and he continues down this path. You know? Or if he doesn't have any more in him, if he's going to make another project exactly like this, then maybe you bow out of it back to something a little bit different within the space, you know, that makes more sense for you. But if this is really where he's at, I want to see him try more, you know, and that would show me that he actually does care. Anyways, I'm Sean, Lonegevity with Bringing in the Band and the New Old Heads podcast. This has been my Unpacked series. Thank you for watching. Make sure you slap the like, subscribe button if you've made it this far. Thank you. Not everybody makes it this far. Make sure you turn that bell on, listen to, so that you can hear all the other things I share. I share a lot of playlists, a lot of music on this channel. That's the most thing that I do. I'm going to try to do these unpacked maybe a couple a week, but outside of that, most of the stuff I share is in posts and add playlists to the Turn Off Your Radio stuff. So make sure you check that stuff out, engage in the actual music and things of that stuff as opposed to me just yapping all the time. So thank you for watching. Again, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, leave a thumbs down. Just leave.